feet. I know I saw her. There you are. Come on up.
All right, how much time?
You can go island.
Okay. Oh, 5. Okay.
You can go less than if you like.
Love more, but
Okay.
okay, so first of all, I'm Allison Russo. It is so great to be here. I am a state legislator down in Columbus, so I get to serve with your amazing state representative, Rachel Baker. And yay, Rachel, that's right. Oh, good, we got our shirts on and everything. Fantastic, good. It's kind of strange to be here and not knocking on doors for a candidate, so I'm glad to be here to stump for myself tonight. And I am the former House Minority Leader. I served for 3.5 years, just stepped down this past August to run statewide. I'm also a mom to 3 kids. They range in age from college age to, I have a 3rd grader and a sophomore in between. And I have been very happily married for 25 years to my husband, Brian. And now I'm running for Ohio Secretary of State, which is the state's chief elections officer, because I believe very simply that we cannot have accountability and transparency of our state government or any government, whether it's local electeds or it's in Washington, D.C. or in Columbus, without the power of your vote. And the Secretary of State's office is critical to ensuring that your vote is respected, that you have honest information that is in front of you, whether you come in to vote on a ballot issue or on a candidate, that is critical. And what I have seen during my 8 years in the legislature is a Secretary of State that puts his thumb on the scales and uses that power to manipulate what voters see and to make it more difficult for voters to conveniently access the ballot and have their voice heard. And so I think that this is, other than the governor, the most important and critical statewide office that we have, which is why I also think that it is critically important that we have experience in this office that is ready on day one to do the job. Because what I can tell you, having been in my position for the last 8 years, is sitting across the table and watching the extent that these Republicans will go to rig the system against us. Now, some of you may or may not know, I ran for elected office for the first time in 2018. And I had never run for office before. And when I did, it was in a Republican seat, so a Republican held the office. And by the time we were done in 2018, we had knocked on 45,000 doors in my state legislative seat. Those of you who've knocked on doors for Rachel, you know how many that is. And we flipped the seat. A Republican had won that seat in 2016 by 20 points. When I ran and won in 2018, I flipped it by 5 points. So there's a lot of talk in this race about what it takes to flip a statewide seat. I'm the only candidate right now in this primary, or statewide, who actually has a track record of flipping a seat from Republican to Democrat. And not just for myself, but also helping other candidates flip seats in some of our toughest districts around the state. And that is what I've been doing for the last 4 years at least, is going around this state and working in many of the districts to both help us hold on to the hardest seats that we have and flip the ones that we need to flip. And it is hard work. And but it's work that I gladly do. And it's work that I have done not just for myself, but also to hold back that 60% power grab that came about to stop the Reproductive Rights Amendment in August of 2023. And we helped defeat that and hold that off so that it could be defeated in August, going around campaigning and helping with the Reproductive Rights Amendment, going around in 2024 for citizens, not politicians, and ensuring that every single state house candidate that we had was saying the same thing, that we needed to reform our redistricting process. And so I want to talk about redistricting because this is where my opponent criticizes me. And you'll hear Isaac with the same criticism. So, yeah. And let me answer that question. I'm sorry. Well, respectfully, I would like to answer that. In 2022, when I was on the Redistricting Commission and sat on that commission, and went through 5 rounds of redistricting. Some of you watched me on that commission. I fought back over and over and over again and watched the extent that the Republicans would go to rig the process, to the point that they found a federal judge that made us run on unconstitutional districts in 2022, to the point that they added party labels to Supreme Court races so that we lost seats on the Supreme Court, to the extent that they forced us to have 2 separate primaries, to the extent that they would redraw, and every time they would draw a Democratic candidate out of the seat because we'd already filed candidates. And I had to sue Frank LaRose multiple times just to get candidates qualified in some of our seats. And when we came back in 2023, we had lost every statewide seat. We had lost seats on the Ohio Supreme Court. And we were faced with the most politicized Supreme Court that we had ever had in our state's history. And the lowest number of minority seats in the legislature, 32 in the House. And so when we came back, here's the option I had. I could vote no, but let's talk about what that no vote would actually mean with the Redistricting Commission and the Supreme Court. The no vote would mean that they would gerrymander even further, not just 32, but to 28, and gerrymander us into oblivion. It also meant that they would come back in 2025 and do it all over again, and they'd have a Supreme Court that would rubber stamp it. So that's no vote. I could have taken that vote, but instead I took the smart vote. And the smart vote in 2023 was to negotiate, and we picked up 2 seats, which reestablished our citizen referendum power, which is important if you sign that SB1 referendum, or if you sign the referendum for cannabis. You have that because of those 2 seats that I gained. But also, we negotiated a pathway to 6 to 8 additional state house seats this cycle, that we have a pathway to flip. And why is this important? Because when Amy Acton is governor next year, and she vetoes a tax on public education, she vetoes a tax on organized labor, she vetoes more attacks on reproductive rights, she vetoes a tax on our schools, she will actually have the power to sustain her veto because of those extra seats, which she would not have if I had voted no. And so I take criticism for that. Oh, and by the way, the Republicans didn't have a chance to come back in 2025 from the state legislative districts and gerrymander us again, which gave citizens, all of you, the opportunity to come back and actually change the process with the citizen-led commission. And if I had taken the no vote, that wouldn't even be on the table. So I will take the punch for that, and people will say, you should have voted no. Well, guess what? I didn't take the politically convenient vote that sounds great on a campaign trail. I took the vote that needed to be taken to keep us in the fight, because that's what governing is. It's actually thinking about not just what the consequence is tomorrow, but what sets us up for success for several years. And that's what I did. And that is why I took the vote, and I stand by it because it was a smart vote to take. And when Amy Acton is governor next year and she can actually govern, I will proudly remember the hard, tough vote, but the right vote that I took. And so, anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much.
Didn't that prevent us from being able to say that because it became bipartisan,
No.
completely, well, a lot of people say that. So
Well, is it that, or is it the ballot language? Because I would say I was part of the 2024 campaign, and one
I'm
time,
talking about being able to sue before the ballot language even happened.
No.
Because it could have gone back to the commission, couldn't it?
no, I think you're confusing the 2025 process, which is congressional maps, which I was not on the commission for the congressional maps. For the state legislative maps, there's only one vote that can be taken, and it's through the Ohio Redistricting Commission. What you were referring to, I think what you're referring to is the 2025, last fall, the congressional maps.
Before that. But
Okay,
maybe
well,
that's
so
what-
the legislative maps and the
It
congressional.
made it bipartisan. That's the problem. It's not-
Well,
it's not
yes, it made it bipartisan, but it also ensured that no one came back to redraw the maps in 2025 for the state legislative maps. And for those who try to make the argument that this was why the 2024 initiative lost, respectfully, as someone who was part of that campaign, well, someone has maybe, yeah. Respectfully, the only reason we lost in 2024 is because Frank LaRose manipulated the ballot language. That's it. I was at that ballot board hearing when it happened. They knew exactly what they were doing. They brag about it after the fact. And I also want to point out that the map from 2023 never actually went to the Supreme Court. It never went to the Supreme Court and hasn't been ruled on one way or the other. The previous maps have been. Yep. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I believe that you are currently a defendant in a case that is set in post-trial. And I'm interested in whether you were sued in your individual or your official capacity.
Official, yeah.
And what is there an anticipated timeline for?
Yeah, first of all, I'm not being personally sued, to be clear with that. The Ohio House of Representatives is being sued by former member Elliot Forehand, who is now running for Attorney General. Elliot Forehand had incredibly inappropriate behavior when he was a member in the House. I, as the House Minority Leader, held him accountable for that, took away some of his privileges as a member with the full backing of my caucus and my leadership team and the Speaker of the House. He is upset about that, and so he has sued the Ohio House of Representatives. And I stand by my decision.
So you're not individually named?
No, he can't because it's all of us were in our official capacity. No, it's the Ohio House of Representatives. The case is before what's called the Court of Claims. It's in Cleveland. The Court of Claims right now, they've dismissed almost all of his case. There's still one piece that they haven't even gotten to the evidence yet. But I have full faith that that case will ultimately be dismissed. But it's against the Ohio House of Representatives. And by the way, I highly recommend that you vote for John Kulowitz for Attorney General. Anyone else? I'll take any questions.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, pure curiosity, not actually right. You alluded to the fact that the Supreme Court justice candidates have party ID.
Yeah.
The names and suggested that it's a bad thing. I mean, we all know that was deliberately designed to
It was.
court, also what it's done, but isn't that, when I'm out talking to voters, the very first thing almost every voter asks a judicial candidate is, are you a Republican or a Democrat?
Yeah.
They want to know.
Yeah.
And the fact is, every candidate is either, have not yet met a single judicial candidate who isn't a
Yeah.
Democrat or Republican. So why do you
Yeah.
think that?
Well, first of all, when the Republicans added party label to the Supreme Court, it was because we as Democrats had actually been very successful, partly because of some of the work that David Pepper did when he was party chair. We had been very successful in getting those candidates elected statewide without the party label. And frankly, to even be screened and selected, especially on the Republican side, becomes much more partisan now with the Republican. And by the way, they only added party label. This is the ironic part. They only added party label to the appellate court judges and to the state Supreme Court justices because of Hamilton County. Because the sponsor, Bill Seitz, former Rep. Bill Seitz, knew that if they added party label to any of the lower court judges here in Hamilton County, no Republican would get elected. Now, it's hard for any Republican to get elected here in Hamilton County for the judicial. I mean, I know you've got a few remaining, but it's hard. So what happened is in 2023, because Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor had aged out and she was really the only swing Republican vote left. What happened was we ended up, because of 2022 was not a great year for Democrats at all statewide. I'm sure all of you remember how badly we lost that year, but it swept out 2 of our Supreme Court justices. So it took a balanced court essentially and made it incredibly unbalanced, and we've lost even more seats since then in the 2024 cycle. So I would say anyone who, and I don't know what your profession is, but anyone who observes the Supreme Court right now understands that we are probably our most politicized Supreme Court that we've ever had in recent memory because of that decision.
I thought you were here for the whole meeting, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Please work
That's all right.
This is Judge Jenkins.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
My apologies.